Feminism. I want to talk about feminism related to something that we talked about earlier this week. We talked about, and it ignited a pretty lively discussion. Is Western society, are Western values formed by Christianity, by modern Christendom? So I want to be clear here. This is not proselytizing or trying to convert anyone. If you're an atheist, I hope that you get just as much out of this as Christians, because I'm going to say some stuff that probably both of you disagree with. If you're a Scientologist, you should just skim right over the This is not for you at all.
Get clear, baby.
I tested my thetan levels. They barely registered. So Western values, and I do see atheists a lot say, well, you know what, actually, well, values do not need, I don't need a God to dictate values to me. I don't need some imaginary sky figure to tell me not to steal or not to kill. Humans inherently know that. Okay, and I think a lot of people who do believe in God, deists, argue the wrong point, because I think those extreme examples, you would probably find most societies have agreed, even if they're not Christian societies, that those are bad things. Not all, mind you. You've had some tribes who don't believe in personal property, but the other tribes did, hence the warring tribes. Some arrows are coming your way. So not every society believes that theft is wrong. But let's not argue the extreme examples, and this is how it relates back to feminism and the idea of Western society. I think it's more interesting to talk about the non-instinctual values in Western society. For example, mercy. Mercy was not a global, mercy is not a human trait naturally, and it wasn't even considered a virtue for a long time. Certainly not an ubiquitous virtue to most people until modern Christendom. The idea of forgiveness, the idea of loving your enemies, the idea of fidelity. Now, these are some values that people out there, atheists and Christian or pagan, whatever it is, may not necessarily agree with, but I am trying to say these are the values that form the basis of the foundation of Western society. So I do believe that Western society, particularly the American, the United States society, is founded on this idea of Christendom. Also, free will, the ability to practice religion or to be an atheist or practice any religion you want. That doesn't happen in a lot of other societies that stem from other religions. So, how does that relate with feminism? Well, again, with Western society, there were a lot of Christians for a while. They've been sort of run through the dirt for believing in something called complementarianism. I'm sure you've heard of this. This believes that men and women have complementary roles to each other, and that this is foundational to a society. And by the way, that's the basis of Western society. It's actually the basis of constitutionalism. The idea of limited government can only function, which is why they encourage the proliferation in the United States of the nuclear family. Before federal government, before state government, before municipal government, they wanted mommy, daddy, and kids, because they believed that that was the best foundation, the bedrock for a society. Yeah. Not saying that it's necessarily right or wrong. I'm saying historically in Western society, that's why that has existed. And feminism absolutely flies in the face of it. And I think a lot of secularists and scientists now, when they wade to the political correctness, are finding common ground with Christians, saying, you know what? Men and women are different, and this idea of complementarianism is probably a better way to go about life, and feminists are saying it's easy for us to see, whether we're Christians or not, the ugliness and the screeching and the cackling of feminists that you see in a YouTube montage, but at its root, it really is not compatible with Western society, and I would argue not compatible with Christian values in Western society. Let me explain to you why. Jesus, for example, was one of the first radical feminists, by the way. Classical feminist. If you look at teachings from the Bible, it talks about husbands being gentle and kind to your wives, loving, providing, and it tells wives to be submissive to your husbands. Now, the word submit means to respect the authority of your husbands. Now, if you look at this, what does this really mean, this prescription? I've always thought this was interesting. The prescription is basically saying, this is how your wife receives love. This is how your husband receives love. Now, we know this now. How many people out there read the 5 love languages, right? There's touch, there's quality time, there's acts of service, there's gifts, there's, I think, words of affirmation. This is pretty much something you'll read in any couple's book. How does a woman receive love generally in a relationship? Anyone who's been in a relationship? I love you, sweetie, kindness, gentleness,
quality time,
physical touch. How does a man receive love in a relationship, generally speaking?
Words of affirmation, acts
words
of service.
Words of affirmation, acts of
physical
service.
Touch.
Physical
respect.
touch.
Well, physical touch in a different way. But again, that submission meaning respecting the authority. In other words, a man receives love not by, sweetie, I love you, honey, honey, but when he slaps his kill on the table, having a woman who will help him to put his feet up and recharge for the next day because his wife loves him enough to take care of him. That is what is occurring in the Bible. It's saying, this is clearly how men receive love, which we now know to be true. This is how women receive love. Therefore, you should give love this way. It's the best way to treat your spouse. And feminists absolutely despise it because they want you to believe that men and women are interchangeable and men can do anything women can do and women can do anything men can do. And as a general rule, there's no difference. They can do it with equal or greater efficiency. And it's just not true. To give you an example, again, this idea of complementarianism. Let's say a father leaves Timmy and Kimmy. Okay, the father leaves Timmy and Kimmy, and he says, listen, Timmy, in my stead here, I need you to make sure you help Kimmy. Make sure Kimmy gets whatever she needs. Be kind, be gentle with Kimmy. Make sure she's fed. Make sure she's put to bed at the right time. Timmy, I need you to make sure Kimmy is taken care of. And then if he says, hey, Kimmy, you heard what I said. Now, listen to Timmy while I'm gone. These are the father's prescriptions. Then when he leaves, Kimmy goes completely off her rocker and just starts doing whatever she wants, not listening to Timmy at all, not respecting, not submitting to the authority of Timmy. Well, she's not just disrespecting Timmy, she's respecting the father. By that same token, if Timmy just starts beating the ever-loving crap out of Kimmy, once the father is gone, what's happening there? Timmy's not just disrespecting Kimmy, though it's unpleasant, it looks painful.
It does.
He's disrespecting the father. And these have been tenets of the Christian faith as far as human interaction between men and women. And feminists often revolted against that idea, right? That's what they revolted against with the idea of the housewife, of the mom. They wanted to remove, really, the female role from femininity. Yeah. And I think you're seeing a lot of secularists now finding ground with where Christians have always been, saying, you know what, we're not the same biologically, and that's okay. And these are the truths that we held to be self-evident for a long time. So I think it's a good thing. I think this is an era where we can actually find common ground as atheists and, I wouldn't even say Christians, atheists and sensible deists. So I think that's a good thing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, men and women are created equal in value, but not equal in ability and role. Right. And you see that play out throughout society, but you're supposed to serve one another. You're supposed to be subject to one another. I love that part in Ephesians. The next verse was like, men, be ready to die for your wives. Just FYI.
Yeah, exactly.
After they submit to you, be ready to lay down your life for them, just like Christ laid down his life for the church.
By the way, that's never prescribed for women. Again, as you see,
they're not supposed to go die for their husbands.
Again, 90% of all deaths in the workplace are male. Yeah. So it's like you complain about pennies on the dollar, which is not true, but we undeniably die more.
Sure.
And by the way, God was cool with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Women the feminists, they hate the S word, the submit word. And that's one of the things I think people have just screwed up so much because they have this mentality that submission means like submitting to authority. It's like, I don't want to, but I better obey the police, otherwise they're going to pull me over and give them a ticket. They don't view it through a biblical definition of lovingly affirming your husband's leadership,
right,
and lovingly seeking to carry that out with whatever talents. I think John Piper talks about that a lot, of affirming your husband's leadership in a way that is honoring to him. It's not a oppressive.
No, it's not like Islam.
Submission.
Submit to Islam, convert or die.
Doesn't mean you always agree with him or anything, but it is a loving affirmation of his leadership.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way that men receive love. That these are often issues in marriages, usually money and sex. It usually comes down to the way love is communicated, and men receive love in those ways, and that's why men inherently also they work so much to gain your respect. Women, they're out there most often. If men are working overtime, it's because they want to be a good provider. They want to come home and they want their wives to be proud of them. They're doing it for themselves too, but it's a big component to it. I will tell you, as a husband, the first person I think about when I wake up and the last person I think about when I go to sleep is my wife. My wife, my family, and as a business owner, my employees, because it is my duty to ensure that they are provided for. First of all, my wife, and so when you're doing that and you're going out and you're taking the hits, that's where respect and submission to authority comes in. And the same thing, a wife who, basically she's locked herself down to you. She's tied herself down to you. Guess what? Women, if you look at them in their own circles, they're very affectionate. That's the way women are. They need to receive that kindness, that gentleness from their husband. So I just thought it was interesting. I think it's an interesting sort of roundabout way where we've now found common ground. So here you go. Here on Louder with Crowler, we get theological, philosophical, and we find common ground as well as telling Bill O'Reilly dick jokes. Hey, this video is taken as a clip from the full show, daily show at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub, where it's available exclusively $69 a year. That's less than $6 a month, less than 2 expensive cups of coffee, or you can feed an African child. But what you want to do, just buy coffee or join the Mug Club. Daily show, louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. See you there. Don't feed children.